Hi, and welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with Adam Studzinski, who is in for Dan Wiederer tonight. I am Mark Grote, both Adam and I, of 670 The Score. I am at Haugh. Our guy Studs is in parts unknown right now, but what we know for sure is it happened again. Bears lose again. They have lost 10 straight games. The Bears are 4-12, and this one was a doozy. Final score from here at Soldier Field. You can see Dick Butkus behind me right there. He will be watching over us throughout this entire podcast. The Bears lose to the Seahawks by a final score of 6-3 for the benefit of the people who probably were either not watching this Bears game and who are just catching up now, or watching lightly and loosely in this game. Caleb Williams, 16 of 28 for 122 yards and an interception. His interception streak is now over. It was kind of a Hail Mary heave that he threw up there anyway, but it goes down as a interception for sure for Caleb Williams, who did not, for the most part, have a good night tonight. There was poor management in the fourth quarter. In the final minutes of the game, the Bears using a couple of timeouts inside about 2 minutes and 15 seconds while trailing. Neither was used to stop the clock, and they didn't use one when they probably needed one late in the game. Yeah, for sure, man. And one other thing I'll just say, again, Caleb Williams was sacked a lot. Some of it his fault. He was sacked 7 times in the game, took a killer sack late, obviously, but 7 sacks in this game. The defense played much better for the Bears, but Studs, again, I mean, this team, it's just a bad team. It is a poorly coached team from head to toe. They got rid of some of what was not good for the Bears and the coaching staff, and Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, but I didn't see a whole heck of a lot of good coaching out there tonight either.
No. You mentioned it, Grote. Defensively, actually a lot better. I thought the effort on defense was great tonight. I mean, the Seahawks, here's the thing, man. You walk out of this game, the Seahawks are not good. I mean, they might end up being in the playoffs, but that's a wild card loss team walking right now. Like they're gonna host a playoff game if they win the division, and the Vikings or the Packers are gonna come in and blow them out. Like, but that's another, like, it's frustrating watching that, because earlier in the year, this was the kind of team you expected the Bears to beat. In the first 6 games of the season, the Rams, for instance, come into Soldier Field and you say, yeah, this team's not that good. The Bears should win this game because they have more talent, but they're poorly coached. Their talent is playing poorly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here we are with another goddamn loss. So I mean, for neither team to score a touchdown, like, it was funny actually when the Seahawks were backed up deep in their own territory in the first half. I thought, man, what if the Bears get a safety here and they lose the game 3-2? And I wasn't that far off.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Before the game, somebody picked the Bears to score 2 points on the night, like before the game, and I said impossible. That would require the Bears to force a safety. So that was before the game. And you're right, though. I mean, the defense deserves some flowers in this game. Kyler Gordon forced that fumble and took it in. We'll hear from Kyler on that. Darrell Taylor had a strip sack. Tremaine Edmonds, of course, a near pick. I'm kind of mad at him. I thought he should have had that interception, but that's just kind of the year it's been for Edmonds. Montez Sweat got a sack. It was a tag sack, but he gets it. Byron Cowart had a sack. And I'll even give a thumbs up to Tyreek Stevenson and DeMarcus Walker inducing the double foul by DK Metcalf. Good for you, Tyreek Stevenson. You held your ground. You didn't lose control.
That was a nice moment for Tyreek. Whatever they were saying to each other, he cleared that he got the foul. DeMarcus Walker comes in trying to separate them, and DK Metcalf was obviously frustrated as all hell. And that was weird because they originally called it 2 unsportsmanlike conducts and then said it was 2 personal fouls.
What's the difference, man?
Well, because it is It's a
Oh,
massive
because it's
difference.
personal foul.
Yeah,
Personal
because
foul. Right,
if
right,
they'd have
right,
called
right.
it 2 personal fouls, then DK Metcalf would have been tossed out of the game.
Yeah.
Because you get 2 when you're gone.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, DK Metcalf had a marginal impact on the game regardless. But yeah, that was a nice moment. The defense, like you said, played pretty damn well all night. The Seahawks felt like it was doing the Bears a favor every time they didn't run the ball. Although I will say in the second half, the Bears' run fits were a lot better.
Yeah.
They seemed to fit their gaps a lot better in the second half. Offensively, though, just I mean, nothing's in sync. I mean, you got still 17 weeks into the season here, you got a quarterback and a receiver not on the same page on a big third down in the first half, that being Rome and Caleb. I know it's two rookies, but Rome is pretty open, stops his route, thinking he's going to sit in the middle of the zone. Caleb thinks he's going to keep running and throws like he's going to keep running, and they miss each other.
Let me ask you this really quickly.
Sorry, go ahead.
Really quickly. No, I just want to ask you that. I want to know your opinion because I wanted to talk this through with somebody, and this would be perfect. On the Rome play, did you think, and did they say anything on television? Because obviously I didn't get to see the TV broadcast or hear any sort of analysis on this game as we're talking about this. Looked to me like Rome Odunze might have alligator armed it just a little bit. Like he felt like he was going to take the shot. At least that's what I was thinking was a possibility on that play. Or it's like you said, that Rome thought that was the route and Caleb thought it was going to be different. But my angle of it was it felt like Rome didn't quite get those arms out there on that play.
Are you okay? So we might be talking about 2 different third downs. Are you talking about the one where it hit Rome in the hands and it was incomplete?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that different from the one you were talking about?
Yeah, the one I was talking about is later on I believe it was 3rd and 15, where no, maybe it wasn't 3rd and 15. Well, it was a third down. And Caleb had Rome open, but Rome sat in the zone and Caleb thought he was going to keep running. And so he overthrew him. But the one you're talking about, that's a catch that Rome has to make. Hit him in the hands.
Okay.
And Caleb had a little pressure, at least on the broadcast. Kirk Herbstreit made it seem like it was a little more tough throw because Caleb had pressure in his face. So I mean that one I didn't have as much a problem with as the one that I was alluding to there, but I think that the one that you were thinking of, I think Rome needs to make that catch.
Yeah,
and
one way or the other, he's got to make that.
And
it looked like he went all out for it.
There's a couple times tonight that early or in the first quarter that the receivers just need to make the catch, and Keenan Allen had another drop. I think
it was a bad drop. That does not add to my bring back Keenan Allen parade that I've been throwing. That was a bad drop by Keenan.
Yeah, and that was one where he was clearly looking to run before he had the ball in his hands. And he's a borderline future Hall of Famer. You got to make that catch. And it actually prompted me to go look at Keenan Allen's stats for his career and see how many drops he has per season. He actually does average 5 to 6 drops a season. And so he's right on that pace. I think tonight was his 6th drop. Assuming they count that as a drop, I count it as a drop.
That's a drop. Yeah, I don't see it as that was bad. I mean, the game started with like so typical for the Bears offense. Again, man, I mean, it's maddening. They need a lot of help on this offense right now. 3 straight 3rd and 5, specifically 3rd and 5 misses. I mean, that's manageable. And they didn't come close. He said the Keenan Allen drop, and then two, as we just discussed, 2 misconnections with Rome Odunze. So you can't have that. And then in the second quarter, it's 3-0 Seattle, and that's when the Bears start converting. They converted the 3rd and 7. They convert a 3rd and 9. Then you had what was the sick play of the game. Do you know the sick play of the game, Studs? Since you and I both like to use the word sick, I'm just making this up as we go. The sick play of the game was the Coleman Shelton, I think it was his fault, bad snap. And then gathers the ball and finds Keenan Allen. That's when you're like, that's the tape I used to see. I mean, you can't have plays sprout from that route all the time, but that was pretty cool to see. But ultimately, that's a 13-play, 67-yard drive. Unfortunately, that ends disappointingly because it ended in a field goal. You have to be able to finish a drive like that, and it's just part of why this was not a good night for Caleb and the Bears offense.
Well, and that drive also had a touchdown negated by a holding penalty against. I'm blanking on it, but there was a holding penalty on the offensive line. I think it was
it was a
Curran.
Curhan. It was Curhan. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Curran.
Yeah.
And that was an incredible throw by Caleb Williams running to his left to find a Dunze in the end zone. That gets negated by the penalty. And you know what? It turns out that would have won them the goddamn game. So,
Well,
so of course, like this sick throw that Caleb Williams makes gets negated by a penalty, and they pretty much lose the game because of that. So
yeah, well, that was in the second quarter.
Yeah, it was. And, obviously
yeah.
games play out differently.
Yeah.
Seattle probably plays a little more aggressively in the second half if they're trailing. I get that, but it like that. Look, if they have that touchdown on the board, assuming the extra point's good, 7-6 would have been the score.
Yeah.
So it's the whole. It's just they just can't get out of their own way. Every time, it seems like every time Caleb made a great play, it was followed by the offensive line collapsing or Caleb running into a sack. There was a little bit of both tonight. Caleb makes an incredible play on 4th and 5 to keep the game alive after that. And I know we might as well get into this now, Grote. I don't know if you want to now, but after as we fast forward to late in the game, 4th and 5, and they're still on the plus side of the 2-minute warning. And they decide they still have all 3 timeouts, and they send the punt unit out, and then they take a timeout, and they decide to go for it.
And they converted.
But that's a waste of a timeout. You have to know you're going for it or you're not. And so I think we should hear from Thomas Brown. I think that you're on the same wavelength with me. Like, I don't want to be too hard on Thomas Brown. He's in a really tough spot, but this is a bad moment for him. And so here was his explanation of why he decided to take the punt unit off the field, take the timeout, and go for that 4th down.
It wasn't confusing at all. I just changed my mind. I think being able to use Torrey as a weapon, and we still had, I think it was 2:16 on the clock, still had all 3 timeouts, plus a 2-minute warning. So the way our defense has been playing all day, possibly have a chance to go flip the field. And force a 3 and out, get a shorter field, and have like a last in the game drive. So that was my thought process. And then over the course of that, changed my mind and said, let's go for it now. And so send the offense back on the grass.
Made you change your mind?
I just want to be more aggressive.
Thomas, I really like a lot of things about Thomas Brown. This is not a good moment. Man, this is what I do in Madden, Grote. Yeah. This is literally what I do in Madden when I'm like, you know what? F it, I'm gonna go for it. You can't,
right? But can't in the process. You can't waste the timeout.
Yeah,
they got it, which was amazing because
they did get it. But now that timeout ended up not having that timeout ended up being crucial towards the end because after that they go to the 2-minute warning, then they waste another timeout later on, which I know we'll get into. It's you. In that situation, if you're punting, I thought deciding to punt was a bad decision. I thought they should have gone for it. I'm glad they did eventually go for it.
Yes,
but it cost you a timeout. That's just poor. That's just poor game management.
And I don't know if somebody got in his ear and said, "Yo, you gotta go for it here."
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's what happened, but that was also. I'm making sure I have the timeline right here, but. That was also in the midst of the sell the team chance. I don't know if those came over to television, but that was after the Bears 3rd and 2, Jake Curhan, flag for the false start. I'm just going through my messy notes here, followed by chance of sell the team, followed by the DJ Moore conversion. It was so awkward out here because the team chance were coming in loud and clear. All of us are looking at each other in the press box. There it is, because we knew that this had the potential, like the murmurs around the press box, where this has the potential to get ugly in the stands with something like that. And then it happens, and it really started to pick up momentum. But then, no, there's DJ Moore with the conversion. And everybody's like, yeah, we're back in play here, baby.
Yeah, it was a great play by Caleb. It was a great catch by DJ Moore. It was a nice, and like you said, it was a weird sequence of events that led to that. And then after that, so let's go ahead and keep going with this here. We have another piece of sound that we can play from Caleb here. So they end up in a 3rd and 15, and they convert another great throw by Caleb Williams finds Rome Odunze downfield. They convert this 3rd and 15, and now they're on the 40-yard line. And they waste almost the entire play clock to get the next play off. And everyone's kind of wondering, like, hey, what took so long? What took so long to get the playoff? Now, at this point, the Bears still had 2 timeouts. And it was on the other side of the 2-minute warning. So the clock obviously is running. They're inside a minute. Tick, 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 tick. So Caleb was asked about this post game, and here was his explanation for what took so long to get the next play off after that 3rd and 15 conversion.
Yeah, I got hit in the throat, and I got hit in the throat, and so yeah.
Caleb, did the final drive feel like deja vu to a degree? I mean, obviously with the game management issues on Thanksgiving, there were similar clock management issues, 45 seconds, 38 seconds ticking off in between when you guys were getting set to run plays. Did that feel like you had seen that sort of, those issues before?
Does it feel like I've seen those issues before? I mean,
That's a yes.
Take your time, Caleb.
I think it was a different situation, different coach, different all of that. So, I think we I don't know if the coaches, saw me down there after the big completion of Rome. I believe you're talking about after that, right? After the big completion of Rome. I don't know if the coaches saw me. Even though I got hit in the throat and the face, gotta just get up and go and run down and snap the ball. So once again, just putting this game, taking the heat in this game. Didn't do a good enough job in situations. Didn't do a good enough job throughout the game. Being able to manage the game, and it doesn't just mean managing the clock, but also means just managing down the distances and things like that.
All right, so real quick, Grote, before we get your reaction to that, what the fuck? I don't like to swear too much on these podcasts, but come on. The guy got hit in the throat, and there's no way that the obviously no coach noticed that he had been hit in the throat, and he probably wasn't able to relay the play call.
Do you think they should have called the timeout right there?
Yeah. At a certain point, you got to call the timeout. And so here's the thing. I understand what Caleb's saying, and I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but I don't know, Grote, if you've ever been wearing a helmet and playing, and sometimes your helmet gets jammed down and your chin strap gets driven into your throat and into your Adam's apple. It's really hard to talk. And it's hard to breathe.
I bet it is.
It happened to me a number of times when I was playing in high school, and it sucks. And I can't imagine having to call a play right after that happened. So I don't know if that's what happened to him, but somebody's got to notice, hey, our quarterback is not being able to relay what we're saying right now. Call the goddamn timeout.
I was in the room for that entire press conference. And I was laughing. Luckily I was in the back, and it was just, and hearing it again, it's even more funny. Not funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because he's pleading with us. I got punched in the throat, man.
Yeah.
I got hit in the throat. He said it and I don't know why. It's this lonely man after 10 straight losses, and we're trying to figure out clock management and what is Thomas Brown doing up there, and we're thinking about Matt Eberflus, and he's like, guys, I got punched in the throat.
Guys, guys, I don't know if you've ever been punched in the throat before, but it's it's really hard to talk afterwards.
So I don't know. I'm not even sure, man. I don't even know what to infer from what he said, or how to interpret what he said. Is he with the long pauses, and this is a different coach? Is he trying to not at this point not throw anybody under the bus? Is he trying desperately to do that? Is he saying, no, come on, this isn't that. This isn't Matt Eberflus. Or was he trying to shut the whole thing down because he got punched in the throat? So I don't know, Adam. What did you take anything succinct out of it? Because at this moment, I'm not really sure.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. He's probably trying to protect the coach who's in a tough spot, as I mentioned earlier. And he's explaining himself like, yeah, look, guys, I got hit in the throat. I was having trouble talking. And in the process of recovering from being hit in the throat, I'm having to get the play call on my headset and then having to relay the play. We're going no huddle. There's a lot going on. They needed a timeout in that spot.
Yeah, they did. You're right. They needed a timeout. So again, second time this year, that
yeah, somebody and it does give you flashbacks of what happened on Thanksgiving. It's different. It is different because it wasn't the clock running all the way out.
Right.
And they did get the ball snapped eventually, but they took, 40 seconds.
Oh, man.
And that was a precious 40 seconds. So yeah, that was not a great moment. And again, I don't want to be too hard on Thomas Brown because he's in such a hard spot, but that's 2 times in that last drive that
right.
Both of those timeouts were used egregiously.
Management has been a big issue for this coaching staff this year. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And look, they learned under Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus was the head coach. So
right.
You're right. I mean, you're right. There's almost so much
from the head, my friend.
That is correct. I mean, there's almost so much. Let me play. I was obviously in the locker room here at Soldier Field, and let's hear what DJ Moore had to say about the final sequence, and then a couple of other questions that I think I left down there too for him.
The final sequence on the drive, the clock management and all that, I mean, did it feel disjointed? Or, I mean, you guys are letting the play clock go down to like 2 every single time.
I mean, it was some wrinkles in there. I mean, it was the one time that it went all the way down and we really didn't know what to do. But at the end of the day, shoot, that's on us. We got to stay prepared and throughout the whole game. And, I mean, that's all I can say.
You didn't have a play-in or what?
No, it was a play-in, but it was a lot of people in different spots, so it was like, all right, we need to really call this time out.
Game feel slow to you guys? I mean, just feel like a slog?
No, it wasn't feeling slow. Did you see we got the halftime fast as hell. It was like, damn. I was like, yo. And then the third and fourth quarter was just so slow. Ticking away, is we going to win or not? And we didn't win.
That's what it was. I mean, he nailed it. He nailed DJ Moore right there about the pace of the game. That it just felt like anybody could win. Nobody really wanted to win. Are the Bears going to win? I have no idea. The Bears probably not, but they really could win this game. And then they didn't win the game. And also, it just sounds to me, Studs, as we dissect this and do our detective work on what exactly was going on at the end of the game, DJ Moore, basically, to paraphrase, saying that the offense was disorganized at that point.
Yeah. It didn't look like that entire last drive the offense was on the same page at all. It was a lot of, I mean, hell, the 2 biggest plays of the drive that kept things moving were Caleb just finding something and using his incredible arm talent to move the chains. And it's just not, it's been something that's been happening all damn year. It's inexplicable at this point. I realize that Thomas Brown is calling not his own offense, and there's a lot of things that obviously have not been that from day one were not right here. Not just whether it's the players on the offensive line or communication amongst the offense, which we've talked about a ton. But I mean, hell, man, there was a quote. I don't know if you saw this from Ryan Poles' pregame interview on the Bears flagship station, that he was asked about the slow starts they have on offense. And this is shout out to Peggy Kaczynski for tweeting this out. This was the quote. Some of it stems back to training camp, ... things not addressed, ... Like what things are you talking about? And stems back to training camp. What was happening in training camp?
Was that it? So it goes back to training camp. There was no follow-up on that? Like, what specifically was he talking about? Or is that the tweet? That's it? We're done.
That's the tweet.
That's the tweet. Okay. I mean, maybe there's more to it, but I mean, I think the obvious question after that is, what are you talking about? I guess I'd have to hear it in context. But if he's saying that there was a problem in training camp about the way things are run, then shame on him, and obviously shame on the coach, the two most important coaches that were fired
Well,
Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron.
I think that like what we can really gather from all of this is there was clearly something wrong from the start of the season, and it took weeks to recognize, it took weeks to fix, and then it took firing the offensive coordinator, and then the head coach got fired. And now all these problems that were there from day one only vaguely got fixed, and now here we are.
Yeah.
And I think my guess is like the problems he's talking about is communication amongst the offenses. That's probably what it was. And it's just a mess, man. The whole thing is just a mess.
It's a mess, and then it keeps getting worse week by week. So and then at least we're starting. Like I still need to figure out exactly and hear what Ryan Poles said, but at least there's.
And yeah, I don't want to take him out of context.
No,
like,
I know.
That tweet just came across my timeline as we were recording here.
I saw the tweet too. And it got me, and that's exactly what I said when I saw the tweet. I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be more to this somewhere. But you're right. The tweet was the tweet for sure, and it came from the Bears Radio Network. So it's definitely something that I want to follow up on. I want to know more about it. And I don't know if he wasn't willing to give more specifics, but you're right. I mean, this team has been bad head to toe this year, and now it's a matter of figuring out. Was this just a bad year, or are these bad players, and is it bad management that needs to go? And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if this was just a bad year, down the stretch for the defense, and their wholesale changes need to be made. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about a lot of that. One of the things that I found really surprising, Stubbs, I'm sure this caught your attention too, that before the game, we found out that Zach Pickens was an inactive for this game. He was a healthy scratch. So that's a third round pick of Ryan Poles from last year here in his second season. And he's reached the point where I'm sure there might be some rationale numbers wise on what they needed and all that. But that's a huge deal. And I guess while we're at it, Gervon Dexter didn't play again. So their growth continues.
Oh no, Gervon Dexter played.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Gervon Dexter played. I got it mixed up before the game. But Pickens, healthy scratch. What did you think about that, man?
That actually is alarming because Zach Pickens is a guy that I liked when they drafted him, and I thought had some off and on moments last year as a rookie, but like he couldn't get on the field or on the roster. And part of this, maybe part of it was their offensive line issues coming into this game. Maybe they felt like they needed to dress an extra offensive lineman, but because they were down Tevin Jenkins and Braxton Jones going into this game, maybe that was it. But either way, if your third round pick from a year ago can't get on the field over Chris Williams, Jerome Ford, I mean, these are guys that coming into the year, you unless you're thinking of the Chris Williams from years ago that played for the Bears, which by the way, it is a side note. How many Chris Williams have played for the Bears? This has got to be the third. This has got to be the third one, right?
Yeah, I would say that the Chris Williams
there was a lineman. The offensive lineman.
Yeah, he was a first-round pick, by the way, so we have to rank these, too. So that's Chris Williams, the offensive lineman out of Vanderbilt, was a pretty prominent Chris Williams. Carry on, my friend.
Yeah, no, and he was bad. Did he ever play a game? I don't know if he ever played a game.
You know what? I don't know that he did. He played just a little bit less than Gabe Carimi played. Another bust, the Wisconsin kid, who actually went on to have a decent career in Dallas, but I don't know that Chris Williams was ever to be heard from again. But Chris Williams, right?
Yeah, so the point is, I mean, Chris Williams is a guy that you didn't really know before the season. Jerome Ford, we didn't know until a couple weeks ago. And they're getting on the field over your third round pick from a season ago. And these are the reasons why people are calling for Ryan Poles' job. I'm not necessarily one of them. I don't know if I know you've been pretty stunt and you're
you want to keep Ryan Poles
around.
Another shot. I don't think he's an embarrassment. You know what I mean? I want him back.
I agree with you. I don't think he's an embarrassment either, but I understand the people that argue for his firing. Like
Sure.
I understand.
It's a pretty good fight right now. It really is.
It really it's really difficult if you're making an argument for his job right now. You can point to a lot of players. You can point to, I think, some smart extensions, Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, a couple smart draft picks, but
yeah, I give him credit for DJ Moore and Caleb Williams too. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, that was because of all the losing." But he did do business with Carolina. That turned out to be gold. Yeah,
that trade will be the thing that saves him, if anything.
Yeah.
That trade that netted Caleb Williams,
honestly,
DJ
man,
Moore.
I think that the Caleb Williams, and I know it's very hard to see through all of this crap right now when it comes to Caleb Williams, but at the end of the day, he did draft Caleb Williams, and they still have to allow, I think, for that to produce and develop.
Yeah.
And it could be what ultimately makes Ryan Poles still look really good. Now, we know it can go the antithesis as well, because we've seen that in this town with his predecessors essentially getting regimes fired, and Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky. But you can't pull the rug out from under him yet, considering this is the team that he drafted. And yeah, if it keeps up next year, then we can start to talk about it. But I still think that despite everything, there's a lot there with Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you won't. I don't think, personally, I'm not worried about Caleb Williams. Like, I think that he's dealing with a lot. And look, he's been far from perfect today. Far from perfect.
Yeah, it was not a good night. But it was not a good night.
Yeah, but I think I've seen enough from him this year that I'm still very much in on Caleb Williams.
Good.
And if Ryan Poles sticks around, then look, the argument could be, hey, he had a lot to rebuild when he got here. He had to rebuild basically every level of this team, and it's sometimes you just have to take what comes to you. I do think that the people that say he should have prioritized the offensive line a little bit more throughout this are right. And I would hope that if he sticks around, he has learned his lesson, and that every possible asset this offseason needs to be put on the offensive line.
Right.
And also the defensive line. But that's I'm not as worried about the defensive line as I am about the offensive line.
Right,
you might need 4 new starters on the offensive line.
Right.
Defensively, you might need 1 new starter.
That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I can't, I don't know. I mean, I need the offseason to take a deep breath and look at this season for this defense and decide, at least for myself and for my own opinion, on whether or not, again, was it a bad year, or has this become a bad defense? But we'll straighten all of that out as time goes on. I think that's about it here for tonight. The Bears lose to the Seahawks 6-3. It is 10 straight losses. The Bears are 4-12. We'll continue to talk about it this week. Finale game is at Green Bay on Sunday. I will be there. It'll be wait. Yeah, man. No, it's going to be interesting. It'll be, that final locker room, win or lose, there's going to be probably very little about the game, no matter what happens in that game. It's going to be about projecting and who's going to be back and asking guys if they want to be back. So going to be really interesting. Studs, anything else, man, before we get out of here? Anything else that you wanted to get off your chest before we say goodnight for now?
I would just say the only thing I think we have left unaddressed, and I don't want this to you and Dan can talk about this as we move on, but if your kicker can't attempt a 57-yard field goal for the tie, there's problems. And that's what had the Bears chosen to kick a field goal.
We're talking about late in the game for the casual watchers of the Bears at this point right now. I feel like we have to explain stuff more.
So if you weren't watching the game,
we understand.
20 seconds left, 4th and 10 at the 40-yard line of the Seahawks. That's a 57-yard field goal. Cairo Santos, I really like. He's been extremely accurate. I think he's a good dude. If you can't attempt a 57-yard field goal for the tie, you need to consider what's happening with your kicker position.
Things have changed with kickers in this NFL, and I like we were talking about before the pod.
And they said Thomas Brown, said after the game that their kick line was the 34 to 37 yard line.
Yeah.
So 54 yards basically. So they needed 3 more yards. And so that brings it a lot into, okay, so why didn't you try to just run the ball if you're playing for a field goal on like 3rd and 10? Or what was your monster kick line? Because every team has a monster kick line.
Yep.
Which is
Richard Hightower loves talking about his
Yes.
monster kick line. Yes.
Yeah, and that's I think fairly common throughout the NFL. You have a 90% kick line, and then your monster kick line, which is, I would think, is this situation. Do you feel better about a 57-yard field goal, or do you feel better about converting a 4th and 10? If you feel better about converting a 4th and 10, you need to have conversations about your kicker. And again, I really like Cairo.
Yeah.
I really appreciate how he's studied that position since the whole fiasco that they had a few years ago with the
double
kicker
doink.
position.
Yep, 10 kickers in camp in 2019.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it is something to say, hey, if it's inside 50, he's going to nail it. But man, 57 yards, you got to be able to at least try it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'll say this, a couple things. I still think it's pretty impressive. I know it's like become pretty routine, but that's still it's
a long
real field goal. Yeah, 57, 58. I'm still anytime I see a 58-yard film, so that's really good. But the other thing too is I think that I was okay with them not going for a field goal, because if they tied, they would have lost. I mean, and it wouldn't matter. It still wouldn't have mattered, and they still lost.
It wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered. Like it tied. Like there's no way in hell that I would have been anywhere confident, even if he made the 6-6. We've spent this whole game trying to get 3 points to add on to the 3 that they scored. There's no way in hell they win the game, but point taken for sure. And yeah, man, we'll be picking this thing apart throughout the week on the Take the North podcast. So thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for watching. For our guy Adam Studzinski, our executive producer of Take the North, also the executive producer of the Bernstein and Harris show. He is Adam Studzinski. He is in for Dan Wiederer tonight. Dan is here. He's just writing away right now. So we'll hear from Dan throughout the week. I am Mark Grote here from Soldier Field. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to the Take the North. Thank you.
Party on, Wayne.
Yes.